Hey everybody, this is Carla and I am back with a word of encouragement. So I did a devotional this morning called He Sees You, and it was based off the verse of Genesis 16:13, where Hagar said, "You are the God who sees." You know, the thing about that story is Hagar was in a situation where, and if you don't know the story, go read it in Genesis. It's where Abraham and Sarah had been waiting on a promise from the Lord. It hadn't happened yet, and they took things into their own hands, okay? Sarah sent Abraham to sleep with her maid, and she got pregnant, but then, you know, when she had the baby, then Sarah resented the baby, and she was mean to Hagar. And, you know, Abraham didn't really stand up and take up for Hagar like he probably should have, because, you know, he's the father of this baby. He took care of him, but eventually Hagar and her son Ishmael left, okay? So they're out, you know, they're away from everybody, and basically they lay down to die, you know. But the Lord came to her and let her know that He sees her and told her to go back to Sarah, okay? But you see, the Lord had to let her get into a situation so that He could reveal Himself to her. Sometimes He'll do that. He wants to reveal Himself, but we're blocking it for some reason. We're stepping, you know, we got something going on that we're just not letting Him in. So that reminded me of a time that it happened to me. And I'm sharing this because, you know, I don't know, somebody else needs to know that the Lord really does see you. He really does. And He will reveal Himself to you, and you might not like the way He does it, and it might be at an inopportune time, but He's going to reveal Himself to you sooner or later. So I had this situation about 3 years ago. There was this girl, while I was in Teen Challenge, I was in the program, and she was getting on my last nerve. You know, she was that one. She was pushing my buttons. She was after me for like 2 weeks. She got on my last nerve. Like, I was to the point where I'm fixing to punch this girl in the face, okay? And I don't do that. I'm not a person that punches people in the face. But I was ready. And I was outside, and I was talking to the Lord, and I was fussing. Woo-wee, I was fussing at the Lord. And back then, before I really had a revelation of the Lord, I would talk to Him, and I would say, "Listen, Lord," you know, like He wasn't listening to me. I don't do that anymore. But that day, I'm like, "Listen, Lord, don't you see what she's doing to me? Don't you care about what's happening to me? Why aren't you doing something? Why haven't you stepped in and, you know, like smacked her or something? I don't know. Why isn't anybody doing anything? But specifically, why aren't you doing anything? You see what I'm going through. Don't you care? Don't you care about me?" And I was mad. You know, I was just mad at God because He wasn't doing nothing. And I thought He ought to be doing something, because I thought I should be telling God what He ought to do. Anyhow, I gave Him I dared Him, kind of. I said, "Okay, when we go to this chapel tonight and that pastor comes out," I had no idea what pastor it was going to be, but I knew we would have a pastor that night at a chapel. And I said, "You let him call me out in front of everybody, in front of the whole church. You just let him call me out. If you're really listening, I'm finna find out, okay?" Well, that was a Spiritual Emphasis Week, October 2022 at Teen Challenge. That was a week where for 6 or 7 nights, we had a pastor would come out each night, a different pastor, and they would talk to us about the Holy Spirit. And they would preach some fire. You hear me? So that night we get there. Well, by the time we get there several hours later, I've already forgotten this conversation I've had with the Lord, you know, where I'm fussing about this girl and why aren't you doing something, because you should be defending me. Isn't that what your word says? You're going to defend me? Well, do it. So I get there, and where I was sitting, I was on the front row of the ladies, and I had this bright orange jacket on. I mean, it was bright neon orange. Pastor walks out on the stage. He turns around. He walks back over there to us. He says, "You, right there in that orange jacket, you need to stand up." And I remember thinking, uh-oh. And now I'm remembering the conversation I had with the Lord. And He says so clearly, The Lord does see you. He does hear you. He understands your situation. He's not going to let your foot fall into the fowler's snare. And that's a verse from Psalm 91. And Psalm 91 is my favorite psalm. Nobody knew that. Nobody knew I would understand that particular message from the Lord, but the Lord. He knew when he said that, he was going to get my attention. And I mean to tell you, he got my attention that night. You know, like, I suddenly realized in that moment, he really does see me. He really does hear me. He cares about every detail of my life, even about this little girl getting on my nerves. And he's basically telling me, listen, I see you. It's going to be all right. This is fitting to stop. You know, he's letting me know, I'm going to handle this. You know, I've suddenly realized he was not the God that I had heard about most of my life. He didn't just get angry and smite people down and send lightning to strike. But I'm one of those people that I need a lightning strike kind of moment to get my attention sometimes. You know, you can give me a little confirmation here and there, and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, that might be coincidence. But when you do what he did that night, I got it. And I suddenly knew right then, right there, I never doubted again that he hears me and he sees me. Now, sometimes he does not do things in the timing that I think he should. But who am I to tell God when he ought to do something? His timing's perfect. His thoughts are higher than my thoughts, and his ways are higher than my ways. I don't get to tell him what to do. He tells me what to do. You know, so I don't know who needs to know. You're in a situation that you feel like nobody sees you, nobody's listening, nobody's paying attention. Why isn't anybody doing anything about it? Why hasn't the Lord stepped into my situation? Why isn't he moving right now? Is he even listening to me? Is he seeing me? Does he care about me? Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He cares so much about you. Listen, he cared about what this little girl was doing to me, okay? He cares about every detail. He cared that she was getting on my nerves. Now, what he didn't tell me at the time was what I was doing, too. He didn't point that out because he gave me some grace with that. I was acting wrong, but it didn't matter to him. He let me know that he sees me, and I'm letting you know right now, right here, he does see you. He's got you, okay? He sees where you're at. He knows how much money you need. He knows that you need a house. He knows you need a car. He knows you need a new job. He knows you need a different relationship. He knows you need to get out of this. You need to get out of that. He knows what you need. He's not going to show you the path, because if he showed you the path he was going to take you on, you might quit. But I'm telling you right now, you can believe it, take it to the bank, that he sees you and he hears you and he's listening. And he is doing things behind the scene that you don't even know about. Okay? So today and every day, be encouraged. Bless others. Hold on to hope. Believe in God's promises. And trust in the Lord always.